Well, there are many things that bring people here to Delmarva to live.
There is the access to the water, there's the scenery, there's the retirement, perhaps a job, maybe even inspiration. Well, there's an author in Talbot County who left life in New York City for a different pace that has afforded her the free flow of creativity. Brian Spiros found out it's proving to be one of the best moves she's ever made.
She's had a long-standing career in the art world, not to mention in magazine publishing. And if you ask Amy Abrams what it took to get there, she'll tell you dedication.
Pretty much during my career was the first one in the office and the last one to leave.
This New York native started out with an art history degree. In the 1980s, she landed a receptionist position at a growing magazine in New York City.
It was being at the right place at the right time. The publication was Art and Antiques. And we grew that over the 8 years that I was there into the most widely circulated art magazine in the country. So I learned a tremendous amount and rose up on the business side.
She then became an associate publisher for a magazine in Washington, D.C. And that's when Amy found herself wanting to jump into the writing arena. So she packed up once again, only this time she moved west to Arizona.
What most people don't realize is that Scottsdale is the third largest art market in the country. And so I got to meet a lot of prominent artists. I wrote about them for the major newspaper there. I had a national column in a newspaper about the Arizona art scene, and did a lot of national publications coming out of there.
While living in Arizona, Amy wrote several articles about Western artist Bill Schenck. He was one of the first to use cowboys and Indians as his subject matter. Those stories Amy wrote about him proved beneficial. Bill Schenck would later ask Amy to write and design a book about his pop art.
It's a 200-page illustrated coffee table book about his career. Most people have heard of pop art because they know the name Andy Warhol, and he's the most famous pop artist. Most people are kind of confused with what it is. It's very simple. It's paintings about popular culture. So you might take advertising icons or supermarket items and make them art, deem them art.
The book is titled Schenck in the 21st Century.
The book is subtitled The Myth of the Hero and the Truth of America, the hero being the cowboy.
Amy says some people may not realize the cowboy actually was a low-paid laborer and sometimes a lawless one. But in American culture, he's become an icon.
So we've endowed him with integrity and bravery and, made him John Wayne. And the book is very much about the myth of that character and what it means in terms of American manhood.
And much of the book was done right here on Delmarva. That's because Amy moved back east from Arizona. She first settled in Greensboro and now resides in Talbot County.
There's something about the feeling of this area, of the shore, of its many miles of shoreline, of the boating community, of the history of the watermen, of a lot of the people who have relocated here from prominent cities, D.C. or New York, who were kind of low-key but have had very interesting careers. I mean, so many of these things are fused together that make it an appealing place for me.
Another book Amy released this year, her debut novel, The Cage and the Key.
It's a spiritual sojourn that gives women something more, women who are seeking within motherhood, career, and romance, a way to grow spiritually, personally, and professionally, and find happiness. She descends down, liquid silver, magic elixir, changing shape.
Amy says the book, which she described as fast-paced, funny, and engaging, comes from her own journey through life. And what a journey it's been, with more than 200 published stories and interviews with some big names, such as Yoko Ono.
She was so forthcoming about losing John Lennon, as everyone knows, is one of the Beatles, and it was just really heart-wrenching to hear how her loss was so personal, and yet we just sort of took it as a global loss, and what she went through in losing her husband and the father of her child.
Aside from her latest work, Amy is a co-fiction editor for the Delmarva Review, and you'll even find some of her work in Shore Life. Despite living in parts of the country that many view as a mecca for writing, Amy says she's found everything she needs right here on Delmarva.
I think that if you would look through the history of writers, many times they go to the cabin in the woods. It's almost a cliche, right? So there's peace and quiet, I think, allows the mind to wander.
Now, are you an aspiring writer? Amy has some advice for you. She says it always helps to read literature by someone you consider a good writer. And understand that when you submit pieces of writing for publication, you're going to get your fair share of rejections. Don't let that discourage you. If you'd like more information on Amy Abrams, just go to delmarvalife.com.